when my body was starting to shut down, my organs were not working properly. When the last 2 weeks of my drinking, I couldn't get drunk anymore. That every sip of alcohol I took, I was throwing up. I was throwing up 20 or 30 times a day. I was hallucinating. I had 30 pounds worth of fluid in my body because my body was not filtering the alcohol. I was extremely, extremely sick before I was willing to accept that I couldn't do it anymore.
It was kind of like a light bulb going off when I realized I had these different friends from different parts of my life that shared this one thing: recovery. And even though some of these friends I've known for well over a decade, I had no idea exactly what recovery was or the journey that led them there. This is their road to recovery.
I do consider myself to be an addict.
Being a recovered alcoholic means I've been restored to sanity.
I would call it my addiction.
I am a person in recovery.
I was on insane amounts of medication towards the end.
I think I knew I was an addict at a young age. I definitely showed signs of addiction, addictive behavior and whatnot. I kind of went through a lot of the same stuff that a lot of people go through in addiction, and kind of progressively got worse and worse and worse. I found my way into recovery through the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous about 5 years ago. So I was around 31, 32 years old. And that's kind of what worked for me. That's where I learned about the disease of addiction. I kind of saw what was going on, and that's where I saw a little bit of hope and was able to move forward from there. So,
Being a recovered alcoholic means I've been restored to sanity of alcoholism. You know, thing is about an alcoholic, step one in recovery is admitted that I was powerless over alcohol. And, you know, I've been around AA. I was around AA for a few years before I got sober. Never had a desire to stop drinking, so I can't really say I was a member. So, you know, I'd go into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd raise my hand and I'd be like, hey, I'm Mike and I'm an alcoholic, but I never knew what one was. The idea of being powerless over anything, I couldn't fathom the idea. So for years and years, I tried hard not to drink. And the thing is, the harder I tried, the more I drank.
I would call it my addiction. So, of course, I had a drug of choice, which I preferred pills, but I would do anything and everything that would change the way that I actually felt.
I had my first back surgery 22 years ago.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm sorry, 20 years ago.
Okay.
And they told me then that I had the beginnings of degenerative disc disease, and that was very young to be diagnosed with that. So after that, shortly after, they put me on pain pills, and I was on them for 16 years. And for many of those years, I took them as prescribed, but then over time, they weren't as effective, so they started putting me on stronger meds and stronger doses, and I was on insane amounts of medication towards the end.
Well, I am a person in recovery. I'm a clinician. That means that I'm a counselor. I do therapy with people who are in recovery or who are in active addiction and during their journey into recovery. I wouldn't say I'm any more of an expert than anyone that you've already had conversations with up here. I just have a different perspective. I've got book knowledge, which is book knowledge, and then I have personal experience, which I'm sure that the people that you've already talked to would say that we're kind of like on an even playing field with that.
yeah, I was definitely a lot more active in the beginning as far as in the meetings and whatnot. I still go today. I go probably about once a week to a meeting. I should probably be a little more active than I am. But they definitely keep me grounded. They remind me where I came from. But coming in, I needed that. I needed those people. I needed that fellowship. I needed, it was my only way to meet people that didn't get high. I mean, before I went to meetings, all I knew was people that got high. So that's all I thought everybody did. So in order for me to see something different, I really needed those meetings and that fellowship. So, I continue to go today. It keeps me grounded. It reminds me where I came from. And when I see new people coming in, you know what I'm saying? that helps me to remember, you know, because I can forget real quick what it was like, man. Life can be real good and I'll forget what it was like before. And when I start to do that, then, you know what I mean, it can be bad. Like, I can get scared because you never know what could happen, you know. So.
I wouldn't even say that my addiction started with pills. I think it started like way before I was ever introduced to pills. The benzos, which would be like Ativan, Klonopin, Xanax, that started with prescriptions.
I was in Florida when the whole prescription pills thing kind of like, they had the pain pill clinics and like opiates were blowing up real big down there. And that was like where I really started to see how bad it could get. I had always kind of dibbled and dabbled and stuff before that, and I always had an addictive personality, but when the pain pills came along is when it got really bad.
I would say when I started running out about a week, sometimes even a week and a half prior to my next refill, and I started going through withdrawals and realizing that I was completely dependent upon them. I would say that it started getting to the point where I would watch the clock. I would look to see when I could take my next pill, and it started becoming an obsession. It was just interfering with my daily living, because all I wanted to do was take my next pill, and I wasn't getting high from them. It was more for the pain.
In and out the streets doing a bunch of stupid stuff, and basically you just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and nothing changes. And eventually it kind of got bad enough to a point where I was like, I don't really want to live like this anymore, you know what I'm saying? And I knew some people that were involved in NA and AA, and I kind of just found my way to the rooms and started talking to some people, man. I liked what I heard, and it kind of gave me a different option on living, man. And it basically was like, change everything you're doing. And, you know, new people, new places, new things, and whatnot. And that kind of worked for me, and that's how it started. And I started getting active in there and meeting people, and kind of led me to where I'm at today, so.
People usually get to the point where they're introduced to recovery is usually a journey in and of itself. For me personally, and from, you know, bear witnessing other people's experiences, it's a journey in and of itself, the active addiction. What I've seen is that, you know, with other folks, it takes someone noticing. Either an institution noticing, like the criminal justice system. It could take a hospital taking notice because you've been there one too many times. It could be friends and family noticing that something's wrong, or, you know, that this is, you know, there's a lot of substantial harm that usually occurs beyond loss of money. You know, you can literally watch people. You know, if you know someone from, like, when you first notice that something is a little off, to the point where people usually get into some kind of treatment or recovery, is that they're slowly unbecoming, but not in a way that like in a cultural sense to become, we must unbecome. I'm talking about you are going completely against your core value system. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do, or you're doing things that go against, what society deems as acceptable, and even on a level that you would seem more acceptable. You're committing crimes. You're, making decisions that are you're putting yourself at risk in risky situations. Hanging out with people, whether, not to build, these connections, but to make a connection. Like, this is where I'm going to get my drugs. This is where I'm going to do my drugs or drink, whatever. You're hanging out with people for that, surface level stuff. And so you're really just like not really participating, with as a human being, with all of your humanity intact.
When my body was starting to shut down, my organs were not working properly. When the last 2 weeks of my drinking, I couldn't get drunk anymore. That every sip of alcohol I took, I was throwing up. I was throwing up 20 or 30 times a day. I was hallucinating. I had 30 pounds worth of fluid in my body because my body was not filtering the alcohol. I was extremely, extremely sick before I was willing to accept that I couldn't do it anymore. And alcohol isn't something that I struggle with today at all. And to be honest with you, since the last drink I had, I haven't wanted to drink since. And the thing is, an alcoholic's body is abnormal. We have an allergy to alcohol. We don't break out in a rash. We have, over a period of time, we lose the power to control. It's just like, I have an allergy to penicillin. And every time I got sick as a child, I was given penicillin until 8 or 9 years old, and I started breaking out in a rash. During every alcoholic's drinking career or drug addict's drinking career, there was a time which they could have quit under their own power. The thing is, it produces a craving beyond our mental control. That over time, we can no longer fight those cravings. And what a craving is you get a craving when something is taken away. Like if I go swimming in the ocean and I'm having fun and then I get hit by a wave and I'm stuck underwater, I'm craving air and I'm panicking until I get the air. All I can think about is that air. At the end of my drinking, that's how alcohol was to me. If you took it away, even for 5 minutes, I had to somehow get it back. It was a constant craving beyond my mental control. I had no power in the situation. You know, if I locked myself in my shop one time and shut down business for 3 weeks, and I filled up buckets full of puke, and beer cans full of piss. I mean, it's not that I was enjoying life, that I was enjoying my drinking. I no longer had any control in this situation. And the only way I was ever going to get some kind of control was to admit that I had no power in this situation. You know, there's a certain kind of insanity that comes with alcoholism and drug addiction. It's like, I've never been in a real fight in my life. And if I was to get in a ring with a prize fighter, I'd get the living shit kicked out of me. But the alcoholic and drug addict, it's almost like I'd wake up the next morning and want to get back in that ring thinking that somehow I was going to beat him the next day, even though I was sicker and I was weaker and I was beat down. And day after day, it's that same insanity of alcohol and drug addictions, is thinking that somehow, some way, we're going to gain control and we're going to be able to beat this beast, and we never can. And that's where Alcoholics Anonymous came into play. That's the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, before I was willing to do anything, I had to accept the one thing that I was never willing to accept before, that I was powerless over alcohol. And my journey could not have started without me putting down that last drink and saying I can never safely use this in any form whatsoever. And when I did that, I haven't wanted to drink since.
When I got out of the hospital, like, I continued to use for probably 3 or 4 weeks before I actually talked to my uncle. And then I went to, after I found a rehab facility, a treatment facility, I left Charlotte a week after that, and I have never moved back home. I've been in Wilmington since then.
I was on cancer patient dosages of the oxycodone, which some people call Roxy's. I was being prescribed 6 of them a day, which is cancer patient dosage.
Just because this guy can drink or this guy can smoke or do whatever and he can be okay, that I can't do that. Like, I know everybody's different. And for me, if I pick up that one drink when I see everybody else having a good time, that's not going to turn out the same as it does for everybody else. You know what I mean? I'm going to be the guy that's going to keep drinking on and on through the night. Everybody else is going to go home. And I'm going to be trying to drink at 4 and 5 in the morning by myself. And it's going to just continually grow. And I learned that through experience. You know, that's how it was for me.
And then along with that, they had me on the Opana, which is a very, very strong medication. And they had me on Valium. And along with all this medication, I started getting anxiety and depression. So then they gave me Valium for the anxiety, and then I was on Prozac for the depression. So the mixture of medication that I was on, I'm really lucky to be sitting here and talking with you.
I would try to do just a little bit of this or just a little bit of that, and it never worked for me. Like, the only thing that worked for me was to abstain from everything. So to answer your question, yeah, it gets tricky sometimes when I'm around people that do that, but I have to remind myself that one is business, and that's what I'm there for, you know what I'm saying? And also that I just can't do what everybody else can do when it comes to that, so.
You know, addiction, you can call it a disease, personality issue. And these are really big, overreaching things that, you know, sometimes people take a look at it and they're like, wow, a disease that's incurable, is there even a point? Wow, a personality, that's unchangeable. What's the point of that if I'm going to remain unchanged? At the biological level, it's a threat to use response. You know, it becomes an addition to our survival mechanisms just as we breathe. you know, so each person has a unique story to tell. And as long as they're still living, they're telling a story. Whether you're in active recovery, if you're standing up in front of a room full of people in an NA or an AA meeting, whether you're just talking to somebody on the street, we all share in this experience and we all have something to say. You just have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear.
You know, it wasn't until I made my amends to my parents that I explained it to them. There's nothing you could have done. You know, Mom was always going out of the country or on vacations, and she told me, I was always worried I was going to get that phone call. And she goes, I was so scared when I went places that I was going to get a phone call and say, your son's dead. You know, and for my mom to live without that fear is pretty awesome.
I want people to know that there's other options. Like, everybody's recovery is different, everybody's story is different. The one thing that's everyone has in common is that they had, you know, there was some sort of addiction.
It's an addictive personality. So sometimes you can use that for your benefit, and I think a lot of people, once they get clean, have that addictive personality about other things that may be positive. Like, I mean, like my work ethic is crazy. And I mean, I do music, I do a lot of video stuff, and sometimes I kind of OD on that, and I definitely do that with an addict mentality.
I love going to concerts. Like, I go to worship concerts, and that's like my new addiction, in all honesty, and something that I do a lot of. That is something that I enjoy doing on my spare time. I really do love music.
That's the insanity of alcoholism, is going, one won't hurt, but one would probably put me into a grave eventually.
Where, you know, it's just kind of like, go, 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 we gotta do more, 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 more. But I think that keeps me grounded, like being able to do music, being able to set goals with that, you know, see those goals become accomplished and whatnot, and continue forward. Like, that definitely helps me with my recovery. That keeps me grounded and whatnot.
I guess the other thing is I just try to reach out to others that are going through what I've been through. I'm really passionate about that. And I've been getting involved in different things here in Wilmington. Since we have such a bad opioid epidemic, I've been Heart of Wilmington, which is something, and there's another thing called The Movement, where they're trying to bring awareness for the opioid epidemic. And now I've like taken that, and I'm passionate about helping others and making them aware that there are alternatives and things along those lines.
What's important is to share that, like, a message of hope. That's why I'm here, because life changes, you grow, you just have to take everything one day at a time.
But I mean, other than that too, I mean, like, everybody knows, like, that music would be my thing, but also just general life experiences, stuff that I didn't do when I was getting high. Like, I want to travel the world. I want to see places I haven't seen. You know, I wanted to jump out of an airplane. I did that last summer. I just want to experience stuff that, like, I never would have thought I would do. You know, it's kind of like find out what you like and find out what you love. I know the things that I'm good at, so now it's like I want to kind of learn, hey, maybe there's more stuff that, you know what I mean, I really want to try, so.
For years, I was always willing to accept. I could go to a psychiatrist and they'd say I have anxiety disorder or I'd have depression. I was happy when they diagnosed me as bipolar, and I've never met a drug addict or alcoholic who wasn't bipolar. And all those things I was willing to accept. But when I accepted I was an alcoholic, and I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I worked the program, and I tried to help another person, I found out I never suffered from anxiety, and I was never depressed, and I was never bipolar. I haven't had any anxiety, any depression, anything since I got sober. It's all untreated alcoholism. And for me to finally find out what was really wrong with me all those years, pretty cool.
The most important person in my life that supported me the best way that she knew how said everything that I would think that would have changed my mind or gotten me ready, and it just took something in me. Maybe it was waking up. Maybe it was that I finally figured out that I was going to keep waking up. So why not do something different? I feel lucky that I woke up.
Short.